Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. You guys see my screen? Okay, cool. So Rise has a few different sections. And one new section that you guys probably don't see yet that we're building right now. That one is called, I'm gonna close some of these. That one is called, sorry, I should have done this before. Okay, that is called goals, and we are going to be working on that very soon. In the meantime, you should just see this this like entry dashboard. Can you guys all see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Sorry,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I am going to start by going over this is what's called the daily dashboard, going over the main sections here, and just sort of giving like a high level overview of how Rise works and the philosophy behind the product. But actually, before I even jump in there, I guess I should just touch on why our mission at Rise and why we're building the product in the first place. So my co-founder and I are both really strong believers in that you can't improve what you can't measure. And before we started Rise, we had no way to understand how we were working throughout the day, whether we were being productive or not, how many hours we were working a day or a week, how much focus time we were getting. And work was such an important part of our lives. And we also loved these quantified self tools that we were using in other parts of our lives to great effect. Like I'm a big fan of Whoop, so is my co-founder, which is a fitness tracker, but you guys might be familiar with Fitbit or Apple Watch. The concept is really similar. With Rise, we wanted to build essentially what we call a fitness tracker for your work. So it's strictly for you. It's not for your company. It's not for your manager. It's just a product that shows you the data of how you're working and then nudges you to work more healthy in slightly better ways. Okay, so I am going to start right down here in this bottom left corner. There's a section called apps and websites. I'm going to start by clicking this clock icon. Here, that will toggle to your activity view, and your activity view is just a live feed of events that are coming in live that Rise is recording. So why am I starting here? That's basically because I wanted to show you the basic piece of data that Rise is built on. It's really simple. Rise is basically built all around this concept of a tracking event. And so an event is a timestamp. For me, it's 1:07 p.m. An app. This is the Rise staging app. A title and maybe a URL. You can see here, like there was a Stripe URL, and then an associated category. And so that's really all that Rise is built on. It's really, really straightforward. And Rise is just an app that's going to sit on your computer and it will track the in-focus window. So at any given moment, you might have 10 monitors up, but there's always one in-focus window. And so as Rise tracks, it's going to be tracking that in-focus window at any given moment. And basically things get compiled down into your timeline. So this here is your timeline in the top bar. And this is sort of a visual representation of how you spent your time that day. So there's a few different sections of the timeline that I can cover. So the first is these purple bars here. So if you hover over one of these purple bars, these are just blocks of time that you were active on the computer. So when you hover over it, you can see the time range for those purple bars, as well as the breakdown by category and by app and website. And then if you see gaps on this timeline, that's either when you were not active or because your computer went idle, or because you manually started a break using the break timer in the session timer, which I'm going to cover in a little bit. The second aspect of your timeline is sessions that you can see right below. Right now, there's two types of sessions that will render on your timeline in Rise. One of them is focus sessions. The other one is meeting sessions. I'm going to dive into those a little bit more deeply, but before I do that, I want to cover categories a little bit more in depth. So we've covered that Rise is built on these tracking events mapped to categories. And then categories are probably the most important configuration that you need to get set up in Rise when you're first getting started. So categories are also really simple. It's just, what does an app or a website categorize as? Creating categories is really important because all of these metrics, your sessions, your work hours, focus time, meeting time, they're going to be based off your categories. And so yeah, getting those categories correct is really important. We do come with some default categories, but we're working on expanding those default categories, but you'll probably see in the first week or two of using Rise that you need to tweak those categories a little bit. So if we don't have a default category for an app or website, everything that we don't have a default category for will immediately end up in miscellaneous, right? So these are a bunch of random websites that I was on today that I have not categorized, right? Once you spend a certain amount of time in a specific app or website, it's going to be that's miscellaneous. It's going to get bumped up to be categorized as uncategorized. We recommend you only categorizing apps and websites once they become uncategorized, because anything in miscellaneous, you're not really spending enough time in to warrant taking the time to categorize it. The reason we do that is because there's no way we're going to be able to categorize every single app or website on the internet at this stage. And so you don't have to worry about categorizing everything. You can just leave things in miscellaneous. However, once they become uncategorized, that's when we recommend categorizing things. Uncategorized, they'll pop up in a separate section above your sessions component here when you have any, but you might also see that some of the defaults feel slightly off to you. So what we recommend is that first week of using Rise, just spend 5 minutes a day reviewing your categories in your dashboard. And if you see anything that feels off, like, customer support, I wasn't doing much customer support. Why is this so high? You can click in, you can see whatever app or website is being categorized as customer support, whichever one feels off, and then you can recategorize it. And since we're here, I'm just going to talk a little bit about categorization, because one of the really, one of the amazing benefits of Rise is that we have really, really granular, customizable categorization. So when you click into, let me open one that should have, I think this one, like an app and a URL. Code should have that. So when you click into a category, you're going to see a list of apps or websites that are categorized as that category. You'll see a few pieces of information here. A, the name of the app or the name of the website. You're going to see an icon, whether it's a Mac OS app, a website app, or we'll have a Windows app as well for those of you using multiple devices. The top level, you'll have a top level categorization for every app or website, and you can recategorize that by just clicking on the category here. Once you do that, you'll be presented with this view. You can create a new category, you can exclude from tracking, or you can select from the existing categories. Then you'll also have the option to change for this instance only. That means just changing this category, in this case for the day. And then tomorrow it's going to revert back to the original rule, or you can change and create a rule moving forward, which will change, whatever app or website it has to that new category, change every event for that day, and then all new events moving forward. If you want to get more granular than that, you can click this arrow here, and the arrow is going to show you a list of every title seen for that app in that day. So if I wanted to just categorize update goal spec, right, I could click on the category and then click, and you'll see that I have a different option here to change and create a rule based on the title. In this case now, Rise will match on the title and categorize everything. So even future time that I spend in, update with this exact title will be categorized as whatever new category I choose. If I was to change it for this instance only, it's this, I'm also creating a specific rule where it matches on the title, but it just does it for this existing time block and doesn't do it after that. For websites, it's really similar. So you can see, in my Stripe dashboard, they have these URLs. I can click if I want to do that, and I'll have the option to create a rule based on the title or based on the URL. So with those rules, you can get really granular and pretty much categorize every, in any way you want. There are ways to get even more advanced, but we can talk about that separately or just message me. Okay, so Your categories are all set up. And now let's talk about sessions. So actually, let's talk about work hours first. So categories are so important because all your other metrics, like I said, are sort of built off these categories. So for example, Rise is going to split all of your categories into work and non-work categories. And then Rise is going to look at your timeline and basically sum up with no double counting if you're using multiple machines, but it will sum up all your work categories to determine your work hours here. You'll be able to see your percentage of work goal, which you can set in your settings, your tracking hours if you have those. And so that's a really great feature there that a lot of people get value out of, is just understanding how much am I working every day, and avoiding overworking so that we avoid burnout. You can view and edit your work hour, which categories are included in your work hours. If you do Command K, you can do G, go to, then you can do settings. Oops. Sorry. That should be Command K. If you press settings, you'll see that you can press period to go to settings. That's just a shortcut. You can also click on settings in the bottom left corner. And you'll see that there's a few different settings for your categories that are really important. I'm just going to call them out, all of them out right now since we're here. Exclude from work hours. These are the categories that won't be counted to your work hours. You can easily customize them by clicking in here. Exclude from focus time. These are the categories that are going to be considered non-focus categories, and that will be important when we start talking about focus sessions, especially automatically detected focus sessions. And then exclude from idle detection. These are the categories in which Rise, if you're in an app or website that is categorized as one of these, Rise will not stop tracking after 5 minutes of idle. For all other categories, it will. Okay, so heading back, I mentioned that, there's work and non-work categories. There's also focus and non-focus categories. So those focus categories are how we determine whether you're in a focus session. And so this is also a huge benefit of Rise, is that Rise fully automatically can pick up when you're focused or not based on your activity on the computer. So how Rise detects that is really simple, actually. It just looks over a certain threshold of time, and it says, if you spent enough of this threshold, it's roughly about a 75% of a 15-minute block in focus categories, we're going to detect that you're focused. And then Rise will then automatically create a focus session for that time period. You can manually start focus sessions as well in your session timer, which I'll cover in a little bit, but that's how Rise will automatically detect them. Meeting sessions are actually really similar. They'll be automatically detected if you spend a certain threshold of time in meeting type categories, although you can also create meeting sessions from your calendar. It will automatically start a meeting session for any event that has 2+ attendees. There are also ways to automatically create focus, break, and meeting sessions from your calendar, and I'm happy to talk about that if anyone wants me to dive in on that later. So when Rise detects you're in a focus session or in a meeting session, it actually will create this session here. The sum of those sessions time lengths are how you're going to get your breakdown of focus time, meeting time, and break time. Break time is the other session. You can choose to show it in your dashboard. I don't. And break time will also be automatically detected if you just put your computer to sleep and you're idle or your computer's asleep between 5 minutes and an hour, or if you manually start a break from the session, or if you create one through your calendar. Rise will also create a break if you go idle for anywhere between 5 minutes and an hour, although you can customize that time range. But in terms of focus sessions, I'm just going to dive in. So Rise at 7 a.m. this morning detected I was in a 42-minute focus session. When I click into that session, the first view that I'm actually going to see is this view, which is the category breakdown of that session. So again, categories are so important, especially for focus sessions. What's nice about this is I can categorize things, click here, and I can change the categories, like for this instance only, meaning just for this work block, this session, right? So maybe I was in Twitter, but I was actually working on a Twitter integration. I could change Twitter from social media to code, but just for this instance only, right? And if I do that, you'll see this is updating, you'll see a little yellow flag that indicates that Twitter is being overwritten, that it has a different category than its core categorization for this period. And then once it's done updating, this updating will go away. The next view that you'll see is a way to rate the session for focus sessions, how focused you were. It's important to do this because Rise uses machine learning to determine focus quality and sort of focus detection as well. So the more you rate, the more accurate Rise is going to get. And then finally, you'll get this really cool breakdown of stats based on your focus session. So you'll see this focus score. So this is the score that's based on this machine learning algorithm that we trained for Rise. You'll see some high level stats. And then you'll see the major inputs that determine the score. So what percentage of this block were you spent in focus categories, right? With some benchmarks. What were the main categories you spent in? Were there, how many interruptions did you have or context switching? And what were those interrupters? Twitter is always my vice. So okay. Oops. Yeah, so that's a high level view of sessions. You'll see that this one's updating because I made some changes that should update once it's finished. Meeting sessions have a little bit less data. It's mostly just the app. It's actually just the apps or website you use. You'll notice that a lot of these have overrides. That's because there's a setting called meeting category consistency where that you can enable or disable, which will recategorize all events by setting a category override that fall in a meeting as the category of that meeting. And so that's just a way to get a better idea of how much time you're actually spending in meetings, but that's totally customizable. Okay, last thing on the dashboard view is you can actually click on each of these focus, meeting, and break sections to see details on focus for your overall day. So you can see your total focus time for the day, the quality of your focus time, the session length, your top interrupters across all sessions. And then you can also see your focus score by time of day. I love this stat. It always shows, like it is today, that I focus a lot better in the mornings, and then my focus sort of tapers off as the day goes on. And that's really valuable to me because I've sort of rescheduled my entire day to optimize for getting that focus time in the morning. So that's just an example of how you can use some of the data from Rise to get more work done and work in it's more of a healthy manner for you. Meeting and breaks will also have similar data there. And then you can click on the week and the month view to see similar information, just at a higher level. Okay, so I will quickly cover the sessions view right now. The sessions view is really straightforward. It's just a way to manually start those sessions components. So I just ended that meeting, which we're still in, but just so I could show you some components of the sessions timer page. The first thing you'll see here is upcoming sessions. This is going to be integrated with your calendar. You can see they're shaded pink, blue, teal, or gray. Teal, blue, and pink will be shaded depending on keywords found in the title or the description of the calendar event. Also, the pink meetings will be any meetings with 2+ attendees. So this is a way to see what sessions I have coming up. The recent sessions are just going to be that same component that we saw on the daily dashboard of all your sessions for the day, and you can click on them to see the same breakdowns that I showed you guys on the other page. You'll also see the time since last break, which is kind of cool. You should also see that in your widget if you guys have your desktop widget enabled. And then you have the ability to start meetings, start breaks, start focus sessions. You can click on start focus. If you hover over this little arrow, it's kind of nice because it will quick start it. I'm not going to do that right now. You can also use Command or on Mac OS or Control K to bring up this command bar menu. And what's nice about that is you can learn all these shortcuts to quickly start and stop breaks or focus sessions or meeting sessions. So like Command Shift B is one that I use a lot. It quick starts a break. And I'm just going to click and start a focus session to show you guys that really quickly, and then show you one or two more things, and we can go into questions. So if I click start focus, I'll see first thing is overview. I can set a goal, demo. I guess that wouldn't really be a focus, but write some code, new product, something like that. I can add any project tags or create a project by just typing new project, hit new project, and it will create it. I have a duration. You can set this as a default in your settings, but then you can customize it per session. And then what's also cool is we have specific focus music. So I do silence, but sometimes I'll like to do lo-fi beats or jazz music, coffee shop noise. We're going to be adding a lot more here too, which would be pretty cool. And if I hit start, then boom, I'll be taken into this session timer, which you can extend, you can end, you can edit, you know, any of these right here. You can change the music or, oh yeah, another new feature is you can enable or disable a notification that will ping you if you're in a focus session and you start looking at what we call a non-focus category app or website. Some people love that, some people hate it. So if you want to disable it, you can do it here or in your settings. Okay, so that's really a high level overview of the daily dashboard and the sessions. The last thing I'll say is your settings. So settings, that's also important. You can get it by clicking right here. There's a bunch of settings here. If you guys we basically can configure Rise to run for most things and most setups. So just shoot me an email if you have any questions about that. And how do you do that? Boom, your support tab. So if you click on the support tab, we have links to video tutorials, our user guide. You can join our Discord community, which we're active in, and then you can see our changelog and feature requests. You can also click this. This will, boom, open up chat support where we respond to questions like, as quickly as we can, usually within like an hour or so. You can also email us. So we have a lot of different resources here. I'll say the video tutorials and the user guide are a little old. We're going to be updating them soon. But the changelog, especially in feature requests, we update every time we release a new feature. And Discord, we're really active in as well. Other than that, yeah, this is the commands key, and that's I think the major components. So I am going to basically, yeah, I think that's really it. Is there any questions from anybody? I can open it up now for specific questions, or if you guys want me to dive deeper on a specific use case or anything. Sorry if this was like a ton of information. Let me see.